Hey guys, Chili B here again. LIP-12 is out and this video is going to go through everything you need to know to make a good decision. If you feel like you're a little lost, maybe you want to check out my prelim LIP video as well, where I go through the mechanisms in detail. Links in the description, and a link to the LIP itself is in the description as well. Specifically, we're going to cover the changes from the prelim LIP to the full LIP. There's two major changes. One to revenue distribution and one to the soft reset mechanism. So first up, revenue distribution. The original process for this was you have your lizard, you stake it in the staking contract. As early investments are sold, revenue builds up, and at some point when it crosses 50k, it gets airdropped to you. I probably should clarify that the original prelim LIP never said it would airdrop. There was actually no mention of the mechanism that it would use. But because of the change in the full LIP, plus this mention in the prelim that nothing would be sent out until there was more than 50k to distribute to save on transaction fees, I assume the original plan was an airdrop or something like an airdrop. Anyway, this was the original plan. Get your Liz, stake it, wait for revenue to be built up, and then you get an airdrop. But one of our goals as a DAO is to try and stay as far away from being considered a security as possible. Lizard, one of our council members, said in Discord, right now the best advice we have from our advisors is that we need to have active participation. The truth is that probably no one knows what's going on with what's declared a security and what's not until it's all set in stone. But for right now, the advisors think that active participation will keep us as far away from being a security as possible. So because of that, the team has tweaked revenue distribution in two ways. The first way is that it's no longer going to be airdropped or whatever mechanism it was going to be. Now it's going to be a claim. But you also can't just claim it straight away. You still stake your lizard, it still accrues rewards, but before you can claim, you have to participate in on-chain governance. Basically, you have to vote in one of our LIPs. I suppose between these two actions, between actively claiming versus airdropping and participating in governance, it shows that you're an active participant in the DAO, and that keeps us away at least a little bit from being a security. So once you vote, once you stake your lizard, and once awards accrue, then you can finally claim your rewards. And that's the first big change. The second big change from the prelim to the full LIP is to the soft reset mechanism. And there's basically two options. Option one is distribution based, and this is actually what was in the prelim LIP. I'll go over it really quickly, but I covered it in detail in my prelim LIP video, so go there if this is unclear or if you want more details on it. Basically, it uses a rebase mechanism to make sure that early stakers aren't diluted. So if you stake from the very beginning of the pool, and in this example, you have 2 lizards, 2 out of 100 lizards, which are staked, the rebase mechanism will maintain your 2% portion of the total pool. And that's what this green line is showing. But if you were to enter the pool later, still adding those 2 out of 100 lizards, your portion of the pool would actually be less than 2%, even though your portion of the lizards in the pool is 2%. So you can see this blue line here, the later you stake your lizards, the smaller a portion of the staking pool you own. And that's illustrated by this first down leg of the blue line. At this point, all the benefit goes to being an early staker. But then on top of that, we add a soft reset mechanism. And what that is a slashing of the accrued rebases by 80%. So it's not a slashing of your total value in the pool, but just of the accrued rebases. So once that gets slashed by 80%, you can see the blue line goes up and it becomes worthwhile again for stakers to join because the gap between the green and the blue line's been closed. And then the rebases accumulate again, and then there's another soft reset. The benefit of this is a bit more clear by looking at the orange, grey and yellow lines. This orange line represents if we were to stake at this point, roughly day 60 or so, as opposed to day 0. If we staked 2 lizards, which is 2% of the total pool, at day 60, we would only have 1.5% of the total value of the pool, even though we own 2% of the lizards. And we would maintain that 1.5% because of the rebasing. But once the soft reset happens, all the accrued value gets slashed by 80%, and the gap between us and the green person has closed down by a fair bit. And then again, at the next soft reset, the gap closes a bit more. And I think mathematically it never gets to equal, but it gets to a point where it's basically equal. And then the grey line is just if we joined the pool even later, and the yellow line if we joined even later. This is the option that was presented in the prelim LIP, and this is option 1 in the LIP-12 vote. Option 2 is what they call a time-based model, and it's basically option 1 with 2 important tweaks. To explain it, it's probably best to start with a more simplified model. So option 1 was a model that had the rebase mechanism plus the soft slashing mechanism. This diagram is a diagram of what the rewards distribution would look like if it was only the rebase mechanism and not the soft reset mechanism. All these diagrams, by the way, are from the LIP. So in this example, we own 1% of the pool, so say 1 out of 100 lizards. If we start right from the beginning of the pool, then we'll have a full 1% ownership, or 1% value. If we were to join a bit later, then we would only have 0.75% of the value of the pool, and it would just stay at 0.75%. And then later it would stay at that value, later it would stay at that value. So without the soft reset, you never close the gap between early and late stakers, and so it's very unenticing for late stakers to ever join. So what option 2 does is take the same rebase mechanism foundation and adds a small, high-frequency soft reset. What's modelled in this diagram is a 3% reset every 7 days. And I suppose this is why they call this time-based, because these small soft resets aren't coinciding with distributions, they just happen every X periods regardless. So with these small soft resets, you can see that over time, a later staker trends slowly towards the earlier staker. So instead of it being harsh jumps, it's just lots of small jumps that makes it seem smooth. And then same for the later stakers. Then on top of that, they add a second tweak, which is larger, manually triggered soft resets. And these can come at any interval and can be of any size. Presumably they need to be voted on by the DAO or the council. It's not exactly clear who yet, but there would have to be some decision made to implement these larger, manually triggered soft resets. You can see there could be a soft reset on day 100 of 70%, and the gap between green and orange closes. And if there's another larger reset of 50% at day 250, there's another jump up closer to the green line. So those are the 2 basic options presented in the vote. A distribution-based system where there's a big 80% soft reset every time there's a distribution, or a system where there's lots of little soft resets plus the occasional big soft reset. Hopefully that's enough information combined with the prelim LIP video to get your head around what's going on and help you to make a good decision. So let's look at the options that are available to us. In this LIP there's 4 options. Option 1 is the distribution-based one, which was the first option I showed you. Option 2 is the time-based one. That's the one with little soft resets and then the occasional big soft reset. Option 3 is to proceed with staking regardless of whatever mechanism is chosen. So this one is basically if you think both options are good, you don't really care which one, you just want to make sure staking passes. And then option 4 is to reject the proposal totally. If there's something you're really unhappy with, if there's a big flaw that's been overlooked, this would be your option. I'm not going to tell you which one to vote for, of course. I just hope this will encourage you to vote. But let me share some of my thoughts now about the pros and cons of option 1 and 2. So option 1, the distribution-based option, I think is predictable, as in you might not know the date that a soft reset will happen, but you know the trigger. As soon as there's a distribution, you'll get a soft reset. And that makes things predictable and therefore plannable. It seems to me of the 2 options that option 1 rewards the stakers that get in early a little bit more, because you don't have that little frequent soft reset in there later stakers are really hurting until they get that big soft reset. So this is a big benefit if you're getting in early, I think. One downside though is that people could possibly game the system. So they might buy in late where an Ethlizard is presumably worth the least because you're getting the smallest proportional value of the pool for your Ethlizard. And then after distribution happens, you get the 80% slash, and suddenly your Ethlizard's worth a lot more because if you stake at that point, you own a lot more of the pool for the same Ethlizard. So some people might buy just before a distro and then sell straight after it for a quick flip. Or there might be some other tactic if the game theory works out a bit differently than I'm expecting. So that's a bit of a negative, but in the end, it's probably not that big a downside because all these flips just generate royalties, which OpenSea has nicely decided to keep doing. I'm very happy about that. So it's a bit of a downside, but there's actually a bit of an upside to that too. Anyway, option 2. It's a lot less predictable than option 1 because the major soft resets have to go through some sort of governance or some sort of vote, and so you never know when they're really going to happen. But that brings with it the ability to hype it up because it might be quite some time between soft resets, major soft resets. But that makes each soft reset quite an event. So you can hype it up, you can market it a bit if it's the right time, and we might generate a whole bunch of interest before each soft reset, possibly. A second benefit is that this seems to help out later stakers a bit more than option 1 because you've got those small consistent soft resets, which means that instead of having your proportion of the staking pool stay static until a major soft reset, it actually creeps up slowly, regardless of if there's a major soft reset or not. So the moment that you stake, even though you're staking way later than the early stakers, you're closing that gap consistently. The big negative that I can see is that I can imagine someone buying an Ethlizard and then the first thing they do in Discord is ask when the next soft reset is. And to some extent, that's just Web3. It's a bit of a joke. It's a bit of fun. But also, I can imagine that causing a bit of division between early stakers, long-term holders, and the more recent stakers, which is kind of understandable because if you're an early staker, you're happy for there to be no soft resets for a long time so that we can build up hype and then really market it. But if you're a more recent staker, you really want to close the gap between your late staked Ethlizard and someone else's early staked Ethlizard. In my mind, the pros of option 1 are smaller than the pros of option 2, but the cons of option 1 are also smaller than the cons of option 2. I think the asking for when thing could really be a problem in the future. That could just be my worst case scenario thinking though. But anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that's informed you and helped you to get your head around LIP-12. Make sure you go and vote one way or the other. And if you liked it, please leave me a like and a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.